She walked in like any other shopper, but what happened next left the boutique staff and their in-charge manager completely stunned. When the truth about her identity was revealed, the impact wasn't just surprising, it was unforgettable. The boutique on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills wasn't just an ordinary store. It was a symbol of exclusivity. Its gleaming glass doors, framed by spotless white marble, opened into a world of luxury. Inside were rows of designer handbags, sparkling jewelry under bright lights, and racks of clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. At least that's what Helena, the boutique manager, believed. Helena had built her reputation on one rule: protect the brand. She ran the store with precision. No idle chit-chatter among staff, no smudged glass counters, and absolutely no tolerance for anyone who didn't fit the store's image. Tall and elegant, with a perfectly styled bob haircut and a tailored pantsuit, Helena was the guardian of this exclusive world. Exclusivity isn't just about price, she often told her team. It's about image. That Tuesday seemed no different. The store buzzed quietly with soft classical music, and Helena stood near the entrance, her sharp eyes scanning for anything unusual. Then, the doors opened. She glanced up toward the office, nodded grimly. A woman walked in, tall and graceful, wearing oversized sunglasses and a simple cream coat. Her heels made a soft clicking sound on the marble floor as she took in the store's surroundings, her hand lightly brushing against a rack of silk scarves. Helena's gaze followed her every move. It was clear this woman wasn't an ordinary shopper. Something about her seemed unusual. Maybe it was her simple outfit, or perhaps the way she lingered a bit too long by the jewelry case. Helena's instincts immediately kicked in. Approaching quickly, Helena spoke with a polite smile that didn't quite feel genuine. "Ma'am, we have a private shopping appointment scheduled shortly. I'm afraid I'll need to ask you to leave." The woman slowly lowered her sunglasses, revealing piercing blue eyes that momentarily caught Helena off guard. For a brief second, there was a spark of recognition. Had she seen her before? But Helena quickly brushed the thought aside. "I assure you, I'll only be a moment," the woman replied in a calm, steady voice. "I just wanted to take a look around." Helena's polite demeanor hardened into firm resolve. "I'm sorry, but this is a private establishment. If you'd like to book an appointment, we'd be happy to accommodate you another time," Helena said, firmly. For a brief moment, the woman's expression remained unchanged. Then, without a word, she slid her sunglasses back on and walked out, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor as she left. Helena watched her go, a faint sense of satisfaction settling over her. She had done her job, protected the brand. Speak number 5. But something about the encounter didn't sit right. There was a quiet intensity in the woman's demeanor, as if she knew something Helena didn't. What Helena couldn't have imagined was how much her actions that day would come back to haunt her. At first, Helena didn't think much about the incident. In her line of work, people came and went. Some tried to bluff their way into this world of high-end luxury, hoping to appear wealthier or more important than they really were. Helena had seen it all. Wannabe influencers with fake designer bags, curious tourists who didn't understand the by-appointment-only policy, and even the occasional tabloid reporter fishing for gossip. As the day went on, Helena's focus returned to her usual tasks. She carefully oversaw the arrival of a new shipment of couture dresses, making sure every hemline was perfectly pressed before the garments were displayed. She adjusted the lighting on the main jewelry case to ensure each diamond sparkled flawlessly. To Helena, the boutique was a stage, and she was the director. No detail was too small to escape her attention. But later that evening, as she locked up the store and headed home, the memory of the mysterious woman began to linger in her mind. There was something about her, something poised and unshaken, as if she was used to being treated with respect. Helena had dismissed her with the confidence of someone who believed she held all the power. But now, a question lingered in her mind. Who was that woman, really? The next morning, Helena's day began as usual. She arrived early, walking through the store to make sure everything was in perfect order. By mid-morning, soft whispers began spreading among the staff. Sophia, a young sales associate, approached Helena hesitantly. "Did you hear about the woman from yesterday?" she asked, her voice low but filled with excitement. Helena raised an eyebrow. What about her? Sophia glanced around nervously before continuing. One of the customers this morning said it was Melania Trump. Helena froze, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. She stared at Sophia, trying to process the words. Melania Trump? She repeated, her tone filled with doubt. Yes, Sophia replied, nodding eagerly. They showed me a picture on their phone. It was definitely her. Helena's mind raced. Could it be true? Had she, in her strict commitment to the rules, just dismissed one of the most recognizable women in the world? A wave of unease swept over her, but she quickly masked it with her usual composure. It doesn't matter who she was, Helena said firmly. Rules are rules. We can't let just anyone wander in without an appointment. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just anyone. As much as she tried to focus on her work, a nagging feeling began to creep in. If that really had been Melania Trump, what would happen next? Word spread faster than Helena had expected. By the afternoon, the boutique buzzed with murmurs from employees and customers alike. Helena tried to maintain control, but the whispers only grew louder. She looks so elegant, one customer said while browsing the handbags. I can't believe someone would treat her like that, added another. I heard she walked out without saying a word, someone else chimed in. So classy, but you just know she was furious. Helena overheard bits of these conversations, and a knot tightened in her stomach. The world of high fashion wasn't just about luxury. It thrived on reputation. A single mistake, especially one involving someone like Melania Trump, could damage a brand for years. That evening, as Helena scrolled through her phone, the uneasy feeling stayed with her. A chill ran through Helena as she scrolled through her phone. Social media had caught wind of the story. Someone, likely a customer, had posted a vague but scathing account of the incident. A certain boutique manager just kicked out one of the most famous women in America, classless behavior in a so-called luxury establishment. The post didn't name the boutique, but the comments were filled with speculation. People were tagging brands, asking for confirmation, and some even claimed to know exactly which store it was. Helena's chest tightened as anxiety crept in. She tossed her phone aside, muttering, "It'll blow over. People always overreact online." But her words felt hollow, and her confidence was shaky. The next day, Helena's worst fears were realized. A local news outlet picked up the story, running a short segment speculating about the boutique's identity. While they didn't confirm it outright, the coverage was enough to make Helena feel exposed. Customers began arriving not just to shop but to gossip. One woman, holding a latte and wearing oversized sunglasses, leaned toward her friend and whispered loudly, "This is the place, isn't it?" Helena's carefully maintained composure began to crack. Still, she clung to one certainty. Melania Trump wouldn't come back. Someone as high profile as her wouldn't bother revisiting the scene of an insult. But Helena was wrong. It happened on a Friday afternoon, during the boutique's busiest time. The sunlit showroom buzzed with activity. Well-dressed patrons browsed racks of designer clothing, and sales associates hurried to assist them. Helena stood near the cashier counter, exuding her usual air of authority. Then the glass door swung open with deliberate force. In walked the woman Helena had dismissed so easily just days before, Melania Trump. But this time, she wasn't alone. A small entourage followed Melania into the boutique, a security team in tailored suits, a woman holding a sleek leather briefcase, and another figure who seemed to be a publicist. Behind them, several photographers hovered near the entrance, their camera flashes creating a chaotic frenzy outside. The quiet hum of the boutique was instantly replaced by gasps and hurried whispers. Melania stood tall and poised, her expression calm and unreadable. She wore a fitted black dress, simple yet commanding, paired with sparkling diamonds that caught the light with every movement. Her presence was magnetic, drawing every pair of eyes in the room. Helena's heart sank. Her cheeks flushed, and her hands grew clammy as she met Melina's gaze. For a moment that felt like forever, their eyes locked. There was no anger or scorn in Melina's expression, just a quiet control that unsettled Helena more than any confrontation ever could. "Good afternoon," Melania said, her voice calm yet firm. "I'd like to look around now, is that allowed?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Every employee froze, their eyes darting nervously between Melania and Helena. Customers whispered behind perfectly manicured hands, their curiosity barely hidden. Helena's instinct screamed at her to respond, but for a moment, she was at a loss for words. She shook her head and stared past him at the buildings below. Helena wanted to say something, anything to regain control, but no words came. Instead, she nodded stiffly and stepped aside, allowing Melania access to the store she had been so abruptly turned away from just days before. As Melania moved through the boutique, her entourage stayed close, watching everything with sharp eyes. She didn't rush. Her fingers brushed over fabrics, her gaze lingered on displays, and she even glanced at the price tags. To Helena, it felt less like shopping and more like an evaluation, as if Melania were silently assessing every detail of the store and every mistake Helena had made. The tension in the boutique was thick. Even the other customers seemed to move more carefully, their footsteps quieter as they tried to witness the unfolding drama. The air buzzed with a mix of suspense and anticipation that was impossible to ignore. Helena could feel her authority slipping further away with every second. The boutique, once her domain, now felt like a stage where she was no longer in control. But the moment that would change everything was still coming. It was just around the corner. Customers pretended to browse but stayed close enough to eavesdrop, craning their necks to watch. Employees stood rigid, unsure of what to do, but too afraid to appear idle. As for Helena, she tried to fade into the background, but it was impossible. Melania's presence had turned the spotlight directly onto her. Melania approached the jewelry case, her eyes sweeping over the sparkling display before stopping at an intricate diamond necklace. She glanced toward the nearest sales associate, a junior employee named Clara. Clara hesitated for a moment before nervously stepping forward. "May I see this piece?" Melania asked, her tone polite but firm. Clara fumbled slightly but managed to retrieve the necklace and place it on the counter. "Course, ma'am." Melania studied the necklace for a moment before glancing over her shoulder. "What do you think?" she asked, not directing the question to her entourage but to Helena, who was standing frozen just a few feet away. The question took Helena by surprise. She stammered, struggling to find her words. It's a beautiful piece. One of our finest," she said, her voice sounding hollow even to her. Melania nodded slowly, then turned her attention back to Clara. "I'll take it," she said with a small smile, sliding her black credit card across the counter. As Clara processed the transaction, Melania turned back to Helena. Her expression remained calm, almost serene, but her words cut through the silence like a sharp knife. "It's important, don't you think, to treat everyone with respect? Especially when you don't know who they are?" The boutique fell silent. Every eye was on Helena, who felt as if the ground might give way beneath her. She struggled to respond, but Melania didn't wait for an answer. Instead, she gestured to her publicist, who handed her a small envelope. "This is for your staff," Melania said, holding the envelope out to Helena, a token of appreciation for their professionalism. Helena hesitated before taking the envelope. It felt heavier than she had expected, and when she opened it later, she would discover something that would change everything. Inside the envelope was a check for an astonishing amount, meant to be divided among the employees. It was a generous gesture that sharply contrasted with the quiet reprimand Helena had just received. But Melania wasn't done yet. She turned to Clara, who was still holding the diamond necklace, and gave her a warm smile. "Thank you for your help today. You've been wonderful." With that, Melania walked toward the door, her entourage following behind her. As she exited, the photographers outside sprang into action, capturing every moment of her departure. Inside, the boutique remained silent. Customers whispered among themselves, and employees exchanged stunned glances. Helena stood frozen, her mind racing. She had underestimated Melania once, but the lesson she had just learned would be impossible to forget. The boutique stayed unusually quiet long after Melania had left. Customers trickled out, many with their purchases in hand, but all eager to share the story of what had just happened. Employees, still processing the events, behind the counter. Helena stood near the jewelry case, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly as she stared at the envelope Melania had given her. She retreated to her office, closing the door behind her. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope and her eyes widened at the amount on the check. It was enough to provide a significant bonus to every employee. The gesture of kindness only made Helena's mistake feel heavier. Helena placed the check on her desk, her thoughts spiraling. She had always prided herself on her professionalism and judgment, but today, her own prejudices had been exposed. She had dismissed someone based on assumptions, never stopping to consider who they might be or what they deserved. Her mantra of "protect the brand" suddenly felt hollow when weighed against the consequences of her actions. As she replayed the scene in her mind, a new realization took hold. The boutique wasn't just about exclusivity or luxury. It was about the experience, and the experience she had offered to Melania had been one of rejection, not respect. Helena felt a deep pang of shame. She knew her actions had not only damaged her own reputation, but could have jeopardized the store's as well. A knock on her office door startled her. It was Clara, standing hesitantly in the doorway. "Are you okay?" Clara asked softly. Helena nodded, though her throat felt tight. "I'm fine," she managed to say, but Clara didn't leave. "You know," Clara began, her voice tentative. She wasn't angry. Not really. It felt like Melania just wanted to make a point, not humiliate anyone. Helena met Clara's gaze and saw no judgment, just a quiet understanding. It was a small kindness that brought Helena back to reality. She wasn't beyond redemption, but she needed to make changes. "Thank you, Clara," Helena said, her voice more sincere than it had been in a long time. "And thank you for being everything I wasn't today." Nara smiled faintly before slipping out of the office. Helena leaned back in her chair, still holding the check, and made a decision. It was time to rebuild, not just her own image, but the trust she had so carelessly risked. The following morning, Helena arrived at the boutique earlier than usual. The air was crisp, and the sun had just started to cast a golden glow over the streets. She took a deep breath before unlocking the doors, determined to face the day with a renewed sense of purpose. Her first order of business was gathering the staff for a meeting. The employees filed in, exchanging curious glances as they settled into the small lounge area. Clara, Sophia, and the others watched Helena closely, sensing something different in her demeanor. "I owe all of you an apology," Helena began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Yesterday, I let my assumptions cloud my judgment. I treated someone unfairly, and in doing so, I also let all of you down. That's not the kind of leader I want to be, and it's not the kind of example I want to set." The room was silent, but the weight of her words filled the air. Helena continued, "We have an opportunity to learn from this. Respect and kindness shouldn't depend on who someone is or who we think they are. That's a lesson I needed to relearn, and I hope we can all carry it forward." She placed the envelope Melania had given her on the table. "This check is for all of you. It's a testament to how well you handled yesterday, despite my shortcomings. You deserve this." A ripple of surprise and gratitude moved through the room. Clara, who had been most directly involved, spoke up. "Thank you, Helena. I think we all learned something yesterday." Helena nodded, feeling a sense of relief. She wasn't perfect, far from it, but she was taking steps to make amends. The boutique wasn't just a store. It was a reflection of the people who worked there. From that day forward, Helena vowed to ensure it reflected the values of respect, inclusivity, and grace. As the employees returned to their duties, the boutique began to fill with customers. Helena observed them with a fresh perspective, no longer seeing them as just visitors, but as individuals with stories, worth, and dignity. Every interaction became an opportunity to demonstrate the lessons Helena had learned. In the days that followed, news of Melania's visit faded from the headlines, replaced by news stories. But for Helena and her staff, the impact lingered. The encounter had been a turning point, a reminder of the importance of humility and the power of second chances. In a world often quick to judge, they had learned the value of choosing kindness instead. Life often presents us with moments that test our character. This story serves as a reminder to approach every person with respect and compassion, no matter who they are. Assumptions can lead to mistakes, but owning up to them and learning from them is what truly defines us. If this story resonated with you, think about how you might show kindness in your own life. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire reflection and growth.